Baseball has just not been able to catch my attention this year. It's just, I don't know. The Yankees were good at first, and I was going to pay attention, and then they were bad, and I don't even know where they are now. So
I can tell you where they are. I believe they're like 6.5 games back from Toronto and Boston in third place.
oh, wow, wonderful. We were like 9 games up at one point of everybody. So good to see the boys are hanging in there.
Yeah, well, I'm a big Mets fan as well, and they're up 2-0 as we speak right now. And the Cleveland Guardians, got to get that right, can't get canceled, but they desperately need a win. It's been a tough couple of weeks, honestly. They went on that 7-game winning streak after the Pablo Sanchez game, which I was at, swept the Giants in San Francisco, and then have been just getting, and then they got swept or almost swept by San Diego in San Diego, and been getting pummeled ever since. So desperately need a win. Last night was horrible. When I'm not watching the UFC, which is only on Saturdays, I mean, mostly only on Saturdays, unless there's like a crazy card out there. Most nights are baseball nights in this house in the summer, and it's been depressing lately. But once we get off of here, hopefully the Mets can bring me a win tonight.
Well, it's always a good weekend for UFC when we open the video talking about the MLB, right? So at the end of the day, we're here to talk about the UFC, as mid of a card as it may be. Damn, I'm on fire with the rhymes right now. You haven't seen the new Happy Gilmore, so I'll keep that joke to myself. But put in the comments if you've seen the new Happy Gilmore. Let us know what you think. But UFC, whatever the hell it is, UFC Dolidze versus Hernandez. Do we not have a numbered ESPN on here? I don't know. I could look around for it later in the card. But UFC Hernandez versus Dolidze coming up this weekend. Starts at 4:30 p.m. Eastern this weekend. So it's a midday card out of Las Vegas. So almost a morning card from Las Vegas. Do you know why that time is like that?
Probably because it stinks. I don't think they want to compete with anything else on television Saturday night. It's there's other things going on.
Yeah. Well, it's a mid card. We're going to talk about it. We're going to run through it real quick. We don't have any prelim notables, so yeah, let's get into it.
All right, if you didn't know, I'm Keith. That's Tom. What's kicking? Pickin Fights. Follow us on Twitter at Pickin Fights Tom, at Pickin Keith, X, Spotify, Instagram. Like, comment, subscribe, please, all that good stuff. We love when people comment. So we got a couple of regular friends waiting for them to jump in the comments. But in the meantime, let's start talking about Roman Dolidze versus Fluffy Hernandez, this mid-card. All right, what do we got to open this main card?
Eric Anders. Has his nickname always been Ya Boy? Taking on Christian Leroy Duncan, CLD.
I'm not too sure. I think it has been, at least like in recent fights, but he hasn't been on like a notable pay-per-view or anything in a while that I can remember where it's like, had Bruce Buffer say "Ya Boy." So I don't know. I think we would remember that, right? What do you think about this
That's
one?
what I'm thinking. I would like if his nickname was Ya Boy and I've seen it before, I would have remembered that. I couldn't tell you what it was before. And I don't know what history on nicknames, but
yeah, you would think you would hear Eric, Ya Boy, and that's just not. I haven't registered hearing that, but his fights aren't like super notable. So
I feel like I would definitely have noted that his nickname was Ya Boy.
Yeah.
Previously in the way that I did right now. I mean, shoot, sometimes I'll go back and listen to the podcast, figure out like who we, picked, what we talked about, blah, blah, blah. And before I'll say something, I'll have an idea in my head as the listener. And then me on the podcast says it. Oh, I forgot I said that. But I feel like I have incredibly consistent views. And I would definitely have not been like, oh, Ya Boy. It wouldn't have jumped out to me if I had seen it before. So definitely a new nickname based on the fact that I'm so shocked to see it.
Yeah.
So what do you think of his fight style?
Mid. Definitely mid. Tries to be a striker. This is a guy, he played at Alabama, college football player, if I'm not wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Jump in the comments. Let me know. But almost positive. Striker, solid wrestling, just overall like mid at everything, but not like really horrible at anything. If you're good at something, and the way that Christian Leroy Duncan is, he's a solid striker, then you're going to close the distance and really light up Eric Anders. He's just, I don't know, he's very mediocre. That's what I think of Eric Anders' fight style. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think he's a guy who went from, as you see here, playing middle linebacker for the Alabama Crimson Tide, probably 20 years ago. So, maybe not as much, 18, but I think he's a guy. He's 38 years old, plus 425 here. Had a decent grappling base, decent boxing base. Christian Leroy Duncan at 30 years old in his prime. He's he's got a 4-inch reach advantage, but I just think about him as so much more of a lanky guy. He's a really good striker. I think he's going to pick Eric Anders apart. I think it's going to be a solid fight to open the card, but yeah, the minus 575 money on CLD makes me think that he's going to get this one done. He's got wins. Claudio Ribeiro win, Dennis Tululin. He's got the wins over, lost to Armin Petrosian and Gregory Rodriguez. Those are the top guys, some of the top guys in the division with really, really good striking. So I don't think CLD is going to lose to Eric Anders. And, has he been knocked out? I don't know if he has. So yeah, I would say probably decision. Yeah, I'll go decision. CLD by decision. Probably all 3 rounds, to be honest with you.
Yeah, safe pick. I like CLD as well. Crazy odds though, minus 425. Next up, we got Miles.
I said 575.
Yeah, that's minus 575. That's insane. Wouldn't even touch that. Miles Johns versus Jean Matsumoto. I'm going with Matsumoto out of Brazil. Guy just lost to Rob Font, but he's fought really, really solid competition for a guy moving up in this division so far. He's let's see, he's fighting at featherweight. He has fought previously at bantamweight, and I guess Rob Font was his first featherweight fight. No, I'm sorry. Right, because this is right. I see 139, 146. All right, so he's moving up to featherweight to fight Miles Johns. Last fought Rob Font, 135. Brad Katona. Okay, this is interesting. So he's moving up in weight to fight Miles Johns, it looks like.
Oh, he probably fought. Did he fight Rob Font on short notice? And that's why it was a 139 catch weight as his most recent weigh-in?
Yeah, that may be the case. I think you're right about that.
I think that might be it. Or maybe he jumped in on short notice. Gene Matsumoto did. But yeah, there's something odd with that. I'll go look that up.
Yeah, I like the guy's style. I think he's kind of sneaky and got solid striking to beat Brad Katona. Brad Katona is a tough fight at 135. He's just a tough, gritty guy. He gets in there, close the distance. He's not like super tall and necessarily athletically gifted, but his game plan's always really solid, and he's very choppy, and he gets in there and he throws a lot of stuff at your face and then kicks the crap out of your legs. So, and then he likes to grapple, clinch, just very technical MMA for a guy who's not really athletically gifted, and he's very strong. You can just see it when you look at Brad Katona. And that's a great win. And then the guillotine choke over Dan Argueta was awesome. Made his way in through the Contender Series. It was one fight and he was in. He just dominated Casey Tanner. So I have to go with Matsumoto here. That win over Brad Katona was pretty solid for me. And Miles Johns, all right. I don't agree with the odds makers here. Plus 225 for Miles Johns. I think this is definitely a closer fight on paper, but I think the Gene Matsumoto has a way better shot here. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I like Gene Matsumoto here, and I'm going to be betting on him. I think minus 285 is a pretty solid line. You look at that loss to Rob Font, and you realize that he took that one on short notice because Rob Font had Dominic Cruz back out. So you give him that one loss, really his first loss in his career, first loss in the UFC was to a very game step up in competition in Rob Font, which he only lost by split decision on short notice. I think that's, as forgivable of a loss as you can get. So with that being said, I think Miles Johns, he's got the loss to Felipe Lima. He's got wins over Douglas Silva de Andrade, which I don't rate that too highly. Cody Gibson is, okay competition. I think the level of competition is just starkly different here, and the performances are starkly different. So give me Gene Matsumoto to get this one done. I think he's the better fighter, and he's younger. And he's getting better. So I like Matsumoto to get this one done. Moving up the card, Andre Touchy-Feely taking on C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez. This is a good fight. It's an interesting fight. Christian Rodriguez is really looked good, even though he's got 2 losses. I can never say his name. Maquizio Costa, even though he's extremely recognizable, really good fighter. And, decision loss there. He's got a win over Austin Bashi, who was 13-0 at the time. Lost to Julian Rosa by submission. I think that's when he was getting maybe a little bit too big for his britches here, because he's got really good wins over Isaac Dolgarian over split decision and Cameron Simon, who was undefeated at the time. So we were seeing a lot of good things from C-Rod there. Had brought back down to earth a little bit by Julian Rosa guillotine choke. And then obviously more recently, just about 4 months ago, the run-on with Acosta where he ended up as the loser there. Looking at Andre Fili, he's actually only 2-3 over his last 5. Also a loss to Mizuko Costa over 5 months ago. Guy was very active. This time by a submission here. Cub Swanson, he won by split decision there. Dan Ige, he lost by knockout. He won over to Lucas Almeida, knocked him out, and then lost to Nathaniel Woods. So Andre Fili, he's had a really up and down career as of late. I think he's a guy who that you kind of know what you're going to get with him. He is about middle of the road, maybe just outside the top 15, 10 to 15, maybe a little bit below, depending on what type of Andre Fili shows up. But as he's 35 years old and he begins to age, that speed isn't there as much. We see, some issues with the chin and, being susceptible to some sorts of or some types of submissions. It's just, I feel like a lot closer to the wheels falling off for Touchy-Feely than, things coming together and him putting together master performances. I think Philly's a lot more likely to go in there and look worse than better. And I think C-Rod at 27 years old has the best and the most to look forward to in his career. I think that's still in front of him. So I think he's going to be a little bit faster, have a little bit more, maybe not a little bit more power behind his punches, maybe a little bit, honestly. It just depends on who's going to catch each other, because both of you guys have the ability to put somebody away. It's just who's going to be able to do it. And I'll go with the younger guy who's had some trials, has some tribulations. He's minus 215 here. He's fighting at a Rufus Sports, so a really good gym. Again, still young in his career and a lot of good experience at this stage in his career. So give me Christian C-Rod to get it done. I think he's just a little bit younger, a little bit quicker, and he's a little bit battle tested too. So don't look past him because of his youth. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with absolutely everything that you said on this fight. Andre Fili is like a personal favorite of mine. Sorry, I'm plugging in my laptop as I'm talking. I just got the low battery notification, so if you lose me, that's why. But no, wait, we got it. All right, sorry, there's my arm. Yeah, so I agree with absolutely everything that you said here, except that I'm gonna have to go with Andre Fili because he's an old-time favorite of mine. I like a lot about the guy. He's a pretty successful drummer outside of the UFC. He's almost down and out of his career. Well, not down and out. He's got a lot left in him, but he's not. You said maybe he's like top 10 or outside of the top 10, top 15. I think that if this was like college football and there was a top 25, maybe he'd be like maybe 21. But Christian Rodriguez is also really solid. I think this is going to be a battle of who catches who. And Andre Fili is oddly a guy that prevails, and he's streaky, win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. His last fight was a loss. This is gut feeling alone. Give me Andre Fili here, but I do agree with a lot of what you said on that fight, Tom. I just kind of want to divert here. So, yeah, give me Fili.
Well, one fight where I know we're not going to divert from, Yasmin Lucindo taking on Angela Overkill Hill. Sitting at plus 155, Angie Hill is 40 years old. I thought she had retired, or maybe she had retired, then she came back from it. I don't know. She's 3-2 over her last 5 losses. 11 months ago to Tabitha Ricci, Baby Shark, and 2 years ago to Mackenzie Dern. Wins over Denise Gomez. Luana Pinheiro, she submitted, and a win over Ketlin Souza via split decision. I'm not going to lie, we hate on Angie Overkill, but she has looked fairly good as of late. Yasmin Lucindo, 4-1 over her last 5. Her most recent loss 4 months ago over Amanda Lemos via unanimous decision. She is 23 years old. She has 5 or 6 UFC fights, more than that. and she's looked good in so many of them. I think she was due for a little bit of a hiccup here. I like Yasmin Lucindo in this one. I think she has far crisper and faster boxing. Angie Overkill, I don't know how she ends up. She doesn't have great technique. I don't understand how she is able to last as long as she does in these fights, but I just don't think she is okay enough to exist in a very weak women's featherweight division. No, what is it? 115. Why am I blanking on the name of that division? Strawweight. Yeah. Is that what it is? What?
Who knows? Honestly, who knows?
It's kind of proving my point, right? Is that like I think it is strawweight, but again, of a very weak division that I can't even remember the name of because it's so devoid of stars and interesting fights. They come along once in a blue moon, and usually they're Yasmin Lucindo fights. They're very rarely Angela Hill fights, and when they are, it's not because of amazing technique. It's because the one thing I will say, and I don't want to totally discredit her, Angie is one of the few women who at times will throw caution to the wind and have a really interesting fight. So there is a high potential that this is a fairly interesting fight because Yasmin Lucindo, as you see there with the sweat and the blood running down her head, she also has interesting fights. So I'm going Lucindo all the way. I think this is a lock to get it done. Angie Overkill is scrappy. But I think Yasmin Lucindo is much better, especially being the younger fighter. And, now she has a good amount of UFC experience. Yeah, Lucindo's the pick here. I can't imagine you're going with Angie Hill, even though you're her number one fan.
Yeah, I love Angie Hill. No, I'm just kidding. I was going to come on and just absolutely like lambast her, and you threw me off with that one, bro. I wore that hat, and I was going to make a joke that I'd do that hat. And then you were like, "You're her biggest fan," and then I was like, "Yeah, never mind. I'm not gonna over." Yeah, I have to go with Yasmin Lucindo here. Again, you hit the nail right on the head with how this fight's gonna go, and I think that other than like this picture where Yasmin Lucindo is bloody leaving the fight, I think that it's gonna be the reverse this week. Angela Hill is wiry, she's weird, she's scrappy, but she really does take a beating and she wears it. She's hard to put away, and I think that Lucindo is going to go in there and just like crack Angie Hill a whole bunch of times and clinch with her, throw elbows. She's nasty. She dirty boxes a whole lot, and Angie is going to look terrible leaving this fight. And I think the only way to go is Yasmin Lucindo. So we agreed. You said it going into that one. This would not be a fight that we diverted on. And you were absolutely correct. I kind of wish I could have gone a different direction just because you started with that, but alas, we agree. What do we got next?
I'll let you start with this next one. Steve Ersteg, Astro Boy, O.J. Osborne, the Jamaican sensation. What do you think?
Well, again, if you've been watching this for a little while, I'm a huge Steve Ersteg fan. He is a minus 400 favorite. The guy's awesome. I think he's probably going to go out there and put on a show. He's had a bad string of losses so far, but they really weren't bad when you look at who he lost to. His first loss in the UFC was to Alejandro Pantoja, and that was really only a loss by a bad takedown in the 5th round, in which like Steve Ersteg was very close, and it's not even debatable. He was on the judges' scorecards where like had he not made a few mistakes in the 5th round because his corner didn't tell him that the fight was probably 2-2 or maybe even 3-1. They didn't tell him that. They were basically like, yeah, you're losing. Like, just go out there and, try your best. So he went out there and bullshitted the 5th round. And then, it put him in a bad spot. So now after that TKO by Kai Kara France, that was a great performance by Kai Kara. He's another spotty guy. And then that loss to Brandon Moreno was really tough. O.J. Osborne is not on the caliber of those 3 men that Steve Ersteg has lost to. Steve Ersteg has literally lost to the cream of the crop of this division. He's, I don't know. I think that if this, like, they always have these hypotheticals about, like, if this guy wasn't there, then he would be the champ. I think if Pantoja wasn't there, then Steve Ersteg would be the champ. And, I think he's got a solid shot of working his way up in this division and getting another title shot. He's 30 years old. He's still got a peak, still a stride to hit. O.J. Osborne's 33, but he hasn't fought the same level of guys. Steve Erceg really needs a win. I think he's going to get it done and start making that push back towards the title. And, we'll see him start to hit his prime, as a lot of guys do of this caliber when they hit like their 32, 33, year-old range. And I think that's the trajectory for Steve Erceg in the flyweight division. So starts with a win this weekend against Ode Osborne, -400 heavy favorite. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just going back and I'm looking at Steve Erceg's UFC career. First UFC fight is a unanimous decision win over David Vorak on June 10th of 2023. His next fight is November 11th of 2023. So 4 or 5 months later against Alessandro Costa, unanimous decision win. And then a few months later, March 2nd, knockout win over Matt Schnell in the second round. And then 2 months later, he's fighting Alexandre Pantoja for the belt. Quick turnaround, not only from his most recent fight, but from his UFC debut to begin with. So big step up in competition from Matt Schnell to Alexandre Pantoja. Fights to a unanimous decision loss, but didn't look terrible, all things considered. Then comes in May 4th, August 17th, 3 months later, fights Kai Kara-France, gets knocked out. So very short turnaround from one fight to the next, and he's having 3 fights inside of 6 months. From March to August, that's 5 months, give or take. 3 fights, 5 months, Matt Schnell, Pantoja, Kai Kara-France. That is a grueling track record. And then he goes in and he has a great fight against Brandon Moreno that you said, had the opportunity to win. So with that being said, I think if he had maybe a better corner and maybe a little bit better advice that doesn't have him taking those fights in such quick succession, I think maybe he does win against Kai Kara-France, has he not been coming off a brutal fight with Alexandre Pantoja. And maybe if he has a little bit better corner advice, he goes in there and he gets that win over Brandon Moreno. But these are all things that kind of come with time and experience inside of the UFC that Erceg hasn't gotten. But with each of these losses comes an experience that he is going to come back from better. And I think he has a lot more natural talent being 3 years younger than Ode Osborne does. Osborne is an interesting competition because he is so long, he is lanky, he can be kind of awkward to fight and to battle with, but I don't think that that's going to be as much of a problem for Erceg. Erceg is fast, he knows how to jet in there, he knows how to throw fast combinations, and with these recent losses, I actually think they're fairly decent because the level of competition has been high, but he hasn't looked bad against that level of competition. And with a few minor tweaks to whether it's a game plan or a timeline, I feel like Steve Erceg could have a totally different career. The skill set is there. So I'm really interested to see Steve Erceg go out there and put on a really good fight against Ode Osborne. I'm taking him to get this one by -400.
Just to talk about Steve Erceg a little bit more. You spoke on his timing. He's got an incredible step into jab where he's just timing like a piston, steps in, bang. It's so dirty. And the elbows are nasty. Really good counter striker. I cannot wait to see that. And then also a lot of people are discrediting the fact that he jumped right into that title shot. And I know you aren't, but we have to keep in mind that he worked his way up, pretty quickly, was literally 1 round, and it was like 1 mistake in the 5th away from beating Pantoja. And then who was that? Tatsu or I forget who it was that they brought in from, I think, Ryzen to fight Pantoja right away. That the champ, I think, from Ryzen at 125, and Pantoja choked him out like it was nothing. And Steve Erceg worked his way up through the UFC, and it's just you can't discredit the journey that the guy's been on. And I think he's going to get the win this weekend. So what do we got next? Is it the main event? This is the co-main, right?
Yes, it is. Nope, main event.
All right, cool. So, Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. That last fight that we spoke about in this one, I'm sort of looking forward to. This one's going to be an interesting grappling match. I get why this is a 5-round main event for a fight night. Both of these guys are floating around that range in the division where it's like, all right, are we going to start fighting for titles or title contention potentially soon? Both of them have beat some names. I have to go with Anthony Hernandez here, though. I think he's the much better striker and the much better grappler. Roman Dolidze has shown prowess in both areas. He's beat some, pretty prominent names at middleweight so far, but Hernandez for me is just a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he finds his way into submissions using his striking. He almost slips into things, and is able to back guys up using his hands up against the cage, dropping a double legs, bringing it to the ground, and then from there, he's very hard to get away from. And he's beat some really notable names. And look at the winning streak that he's on right now. The guy is seriously making a case to fight for, at least like a title contender spot soon. At least I think so. I mean, middleweight is right there fighting at middleweight this week. Little logjam, but in certain aspects. But I just think you keep feeding him big names if he wins. And Roman Dolidze is becoming a solid name in the UFC. Guys are starting to know him. He's actually like main evented a few fight nights up to this point. I think his last one was against Marvin Vettori. And had some fun wins along the way as well. Like Roman Dolidze had that leg lock, I believe, against Jack Hermanson that was really solid that I always think about. But Anthony Hernandez really sticks out as just way better submission artist. So, yeah, I have to go with Anthony Hernandez. I think he's going to find his way into something dirty this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Anthony Hernandez is that caliber of grappler that does really well in a scramble and just, for whatever reason, ends up looking like slippery. Is the best way to describe it. Like Chase Hooper comes to mind. Money Moicano comes to mind. Charles Oliveira at times. Just when these guys are doing their jiu-jitsu and they're flowing from one position to the next, it looks so second nature. It looks so effortless, but at the same time, it's so dangerous. And I think Fluffy Hernandez falls into that category of fighter where it's just almost effortless on the ground. And I think Roman Dolidze, he's a lot more power. He's a lot more grappling, wrestling, strength-based positions. And that can work, but sometimes against an elite level grappler like Anthony Hernandez, he's going to be able to find ways out. And I think jiu-jitsu is progressing, whereas, grappling maybe isn't innovating as quickly. I think there is a lot of technique that comes to grappling and wrestling, but I think jiu-jitsu is, especially when you get into guys who are, so limber, so dexterity. I knew I was going to have an issue with that word, but have such great dexterity with their feet and have such good flexibility that it's really hard to prepare for. Again, Hernandez falls into that category of grappler. So he is 14-2 for a reason, 5-0 over his last 5. The win over Brendan Allen, the unanimous decision win over Brendan Allen is what really speaks volumes. If he can get that done against a grappler of Brendan Allen's quality, then I think Aaron Hernandez, wow, gone forever. Just kidding. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez is going to go out and have an opportunity to get this one done against Roman Dolidze. I think he's going to be in the more advantageous position more often than not, unless, and this is the one caveat, Roman Dolidze just goes out there and locks him up on the cage and holds him there for an extended period of time. And I guess for whatever reason, the judges go ahead and give that as a strong position to Dolidze and give him rounds for that. I hope they don't. It's really hit or miss, but unless Dolidze is holding him up against the cage, I think Hernandez is creative enough to get this one to the ground and look good on the ground. He's got a 6-year age advantage and a lot in a jiu-jitsu advantage. So give me Hernandez.
Yeah, I definitely think that scenario with Roman Dolidze holding him up, that's I hope an unlikely scenario, at least for 5 rounds. I think that maybe that could happen early into the fight, but I see Anthony Hernandez going out there and finding the submission in this one. Slippery is a good word for him. Absolutely. I love that one. Pick rundown time, wrap it up, put a bow on it.
All right. Who first? You?
All right. Well, now Tapology is not loading on my computer, so I'll see if I can see it on yours. Nope. All right, you want to go first?
All right, I'll go first. Starting from the bottom of the main card and the main card only, I'm going with CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan to get the win over Eric Anders. I'm going with Gene Matsumoto to get the win over Miles John. Give me C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez to get the win over Andre Philly. I'm going with Yasmin Lucindo over Angie Overkill Hill. Give me Steve Urseg over O'Day Osborne and Anthony Hernandez over Roman Dolidze. Yeah, let's go with that. I like it.
All right. Somebody talk to somebody at Tapology. Get their stuff fixed. I got Christian Leroy Duncan over Eric Anders, Gene Matsumoto over Miles Johns, Andre Touchy Feely over Christian Rodriguez, Yasmin Lucindo over Angela Hill, and I'm leaning towards decision. Steve Erceg over Ode Osborne. That one also feels like a decision too. And Anthony Hernandez over Roman Dolidze. I like it by submission. If you are going to bet, please bet responsibly. It's a smart thing to do.
There you go. There you have it. Dolidze versus Hernandez, the fight everyone's been looking forward to, and it's certainly not forgotten about until shortly before this this podcast. So thank you. If you stayed with us till the end here, do us a favor, go ahead and like the video if you watched it and stayed all the way to the end, or if you only watched for a particular fight, go ahead and let us know what fight that was and what you think of our picks, who you think is going to win, who you're most interested in seeing. Hit that subscribe button, get notified every time we go live. We try to do it at the beginning of the week, but it does seem to change. So the only way to know exactly when is to hit that subscribe button. And then when you know that when we're going live, you can hop in the chat, let us know what you think of our picks in real time, respond back and forth. Keith normally does this. How'd I do, Keith? Did I miss anything?
No, you killed it.
Hell yeah, brother. All right. Well, with that being said, enjoy the violence.